It's March, one of the busiest times of year as we transition from the winter garden to the summer garden. So I'm going to jump right into things we're doing this month in the garden here in Hawaii for the month of March. It's coup season now in Hawaii, which is a time for action. And with recent spikes in inflation, with food costs soaring, what better way to fight that than starting a garden? So let's get planting. Now's a great time to be cleaning up those winter gardens, removing old plants that have just done their thing to make way for the new summer crops that you're about to plant. Now's a perfect time as you clear out those old plants to add some compost and fertilizer and otherwise amend that soil for the summer crops. And if you haven't already, keep mulching your plants. The more mulch that we can get around our fruit trees and even around our vegetables, the more water we can conserve for the winter months. And so far this winter has been super dry, so conserving water should be high on the list. And if you have the resources, think about building a raised bed or two, especially in areas with rocky soil. This will be your key to success when planting annuals. If you have animals, you might be having some spring babies showing up to the homestead. Around here, I have tons of little baby chickens popping up still. I hear their little chirping all over the place. A lot of friends of mine are having a lambing season right now. Baby sheep are popping out all over. And if you do have sheep or baby chickens and you feed them, be sure to add any vitamins and minerals that they may not be getting from your homestead. And keep an eye out for possible disease or whatnot. These babies can get sick quick out here in our tropical climate, so it's always good to just watch them a little closer. March is a busy time in the annual vegetable garden for sowing seeds. I've been getting my beds here ready, adding a little more cinder and manure and some compost to get them ready for my summer plantings here. A few winter plantings are still holding on, and so I'll let them remain. I'm going to sow seeds like these. I'm going to have to read off a list here because there are so many of them. We have basils, beets, bok choy, carrots, cabbage, chard, chives, collards, cilantro, kale, leeks, lettuce, mustard, onions, pigeon peas, green beans, potato, radishes, Asian greens like tatsoi or pak choi, Chinese cabbage. All those things could be planted now in the garden. March is kind of reaching the end time when you should be planting those types of crops. Otherwise, we're getting into the warmer months here. And this is the prime time right now to be seeding up some of those warm season crops that just love the heat, like corn, eggplant, cucumbers, tomatoes, zucchini, melons, and peppers. Just be sure that you protect the young seedlings from rain if it ever does show up again. My place here, I have it under cover, and so I add the water when I want to. But if you're planting all that stuff outside in the elements, make sure that you protect those young little guys because that rain could come down pretty hard at times. And if you're growing things like lettuce, you can go ahead and sow it every 2 weeks from now to the end of May, especially if you're in the cooler elevation climates. And you could have a continual flush of lettuce that way just by seeding a little bit every 2 weeks or so. Just be sure that you keep an eye out for slugs because around here, especially on the Big Island and parts of Maui, we have rat lungworm disease, and it's spread by the slug when you eat raw vegetables. So lettuce is one of those plants I don't really grow here anymore. But if you do, keep an eye out for slugs. And if you don't know what rat lungworm disease is, you can check out this video up here because I already went through all about it, sharing exactly what the terrible disease is and how you could try and avoid it. And if you like those tropical herbs, right now is a great time to get those planted. Basil, galangal, ginger, turmeric, culantro, Vietnamese cilantro. You can plant some rosemary, chives. All these things right now are great to start planting. The thing about planting is that eventually you get to harvest. And right now is a great time to harvest stuff from your garden. The Suriname cherries at my place are going off. And in fact, anything that I just mentioned, seeding like carrots, chard, kale, collards, all of those plants you could be harvesting right now. And you would not be having to worry about the high cost of food right now at the grocery store. And beyond that, you could be harvesting avocados. I still have some abius on my trees, mulberries, cacao and lilikoi, cassava, kalo, sweet potato, all great root crops to help feed you during those lean times. Oranges and mandarins are still around, but they're starting to teeter out for most people in most places. I pretty much harvested all that I have. Bananas and papayas, always the perennial favorite, producing reliably for us every month, year in, year out. I like to plant papayas every year because they are short-lived perennials and I like to have a continual stock of them. You could also be harvesting poha berries, herbs such as basil and galangal, turmeric. You got chili peppers and bell peppers. You got guava, cherry tomatoes, dragon fruits. Jackfruit is ready right now. Soursop, rambutan, moringa, and katuk could be harvested. Chayote. Right now you're starting to see mangoes really get large, tempting you for that promise of harvest coming up around the end of May or June. Coconuts are always there, ready to be harvested if you're that lucky. Yacon, eggplant, green onions, jabota kaba is going off. Starfruit has reached the end of its little season here. Some people are getting zucchinis out of their garden. Vanilla is starting to mature and ripen, hopefully if you hand pollinated earlier in the season. Melons, mountain apples are just starting to come in. All this abundance, if you only planted already. But you know what the next best time for planting is? Right now. Hopefully you've taken my advice already and taken care of any odd jobs the last 2 months that you may have been putting off, because right now it's a busy time in the garden for planting. But if you do still find yourself with some time, there's still a few things that you can do here and there. I like to be spreading lots of compost and manure and fertilizer this time of year. March is a great time for that, for bed prepping. And right now is a great time to be staying on top of your weeding. If you can get on top of the weeds now, you can have an easier time through the summer as they begin to grow a little quicker. You do not want your weeds to get to seed or to begin to root down, because they're only going to spread that way. So stay on top of those weeds if you can, but good luck. Mulch is always a good thing to be spreading if you can get it. It could be really hard to find good mulch. I like to try and use mulch that I have on site. Right here around this jabota kaba, I got some branch clippings from an ice cream bean. I dropped their leaves here, and eventually I'll be spreading more and more mulch. I did get some mulch from the compost facility in Hilo, which is a great resource for us out here, and I'm going to be spreading it over the branches, kind of smothering them, and just creating a nice well mulched area for this jabota kaba here. And if you have fruit trees that just finished fruiting, now could be a great time for pruning them. I like to keep my fruit trees manageable. I don't like my fruit falling from 80 feet up in the air. I like to be able to harvest my fruit by hand so they don't get ruined, smashed, or bruised. So try and keep those fruit trees manageable, especially if you have a small space. I have a small half acre here where I'm doing most of my growing, and by keeping my trees small, I could get more fruit growing in here. And I'm utilizing layers so that they can all fit in tight spaces. If you want to learn more about layering and creating a good food forest, I created a video showing you exactly how to do it, and you can check it out right here. While pest season never seems to really end here in Hawaii, it's definitely picking up a bit. I have a ton of aphids attacking my orange tree that has been healthy for every year up until this year. And I got to get on this tree a little bit more. I'm going to be spraying a soapy, oily water mix to hopefully smother these guys and kill them. And if that doesn't work, maybe I'll try some pepper oil, or I'm just going to be constantly spraying them off, because the best thing you could do is just get rid of them. So go around and check out your trees and see if they're getting hit by any pests right now. Another pest in full force this season is slugs. Slugs are everywhere, and they especially come out at night, which makes it easy for them to be picked. I have a jar of salt water and some tongs, and I go out picking slugs off my water tank, and I go into my garden to see if I got any slugs, and I pick them, never touching them by hand, because out here we have that rat lungworm disease that I told you about. And if you even touch a slug and then maybe put some food to your mouth or your fingers to your mouth, you might contract that horrible disease, so watch out for that. Get rid of slugs though, because they'll eat your plants, and out here that's a difference between being able to walk or never being able to walk again. I also find rats to be more active this time of year. They tend to come out of their winter hibernation of sorts and come out looking for food. And my cats tend to constantly catch a rat or two here and there that I find in the grass, waiting for me to get rid of. And I also set up traps because rats are also carriers and distributors of the rat lungworm, actual worm. Those slugs go over their feces and pick up that worm, and that's how we contract it. So getting rid of rats helps also getting rid of rat lungworm. Rats are one of the animals that have spread the most amount of disease in this world. So why have them breed prolifically on your property? Get rid of the rats. But don't use poisons to do it, because those poisons could get into the food chain and go down the line and potentially harm some of Hawaii's fragile native animals. So traps is the best thing. Your house cats is the second best, although they also have an impact on native birds. Just keep that in mind when you're thinking about getting rid of rats. And if you're like me at my place, you got plenty of fire ants to deal with. I just heard someone give a good tip about placing out an empty jar of peanut butter overnight, and the next morning they had thousands of fire ants that they're able to dispose of. That could be a great method to use keeping the fire ant population down, in conjunction with using baits and whatnot that target fire ants, such as tango or bifen or whatnot. If anyone's got a better way to do it, please leave a comment below. I'd love to learn more about getting rid of fire ants. Now's a great time to be propagating plants. Whenever you have seeds from fruit that you eat, plant them in a pot. Air layering and grafting is a great thing to do. I like to air layer ulu because it's a great plant that can help us during this time of transition that's going on in the world. It could provide so much food for the people of Hawaii, and I believe that there should be a ulu in every yard. So I'm propagating some ulu, and I've been sharing it with my immediate neighbors around here because I want to see them grow in abundance as well as myself grow in abundance. Now's a great time to be planting avocado and citrus trees. Nurseries out there have plenty of avocados and citrus trees to choose from, and I would go ahead and plant it now during this time of year when it's still cooler so that the roots can get established before the summer. Just make sure that you give them plenty of water and mulch so that the roots can stay well hydrated and not dry out. Other perennials that are great to plant right now are sweet potato, kalo, and cassava. Right now is a great time to get them in the garden, and if you get them in now, you'll have a great harvest coming in this fall. I also like to use this time to go around to my banana clumps and thin them out a bit. Bananas, they like to be in smaller groupings, maybe groupings of 5 to 8 bananas. I like to make sure that I have a few that are about to go to fruit, and a few young ones, and a few middle-aged ones. And keeping that ratio allows you to have better fruit production, larger racks, larger bananas, and overall healthier banana trees. So go ahead, thin those bananas, and with those keikis, why don't you share them with your neighbors? Create that abundance, because we're in the same canoe together. Make sure you use this time to fertilize. I got myself a natural fertilizer right here behind me along with my chickens. But I also like to add other fertilizers like dolomite, or a well-balanced fertilizer like a 8-8-8 fertilizer that you can spread around your fruit trees. Perfect time of year for spreading a fertilizer like that. I do it about 4 times per year. And right now I really like to kick in my foliar sprays as the weather dries up, or maybe it'll get wetter. Who knows what's going to happen anymore. But foliar spraying with compost tea, worm tea, fish emulsion, all these things are great to just start spraying around your garden. And if you've heard about Korean natural farming, those amendments too can be great to be spraying right now. Fermented plant juice, you could be spreading IMOs right now. And if you don't know what Korean natural farming is, there's a great program by a local guy, Drake Weinert, here on the Big Island, or Joe McGinn on Oahu, where they're teaching all about natural farming. You could find Drake through Hawaii Natural Farming, and Joe is on Facebook. And you can learn more about natural farming, a way to create natural fertilizers from your homestead, from things that pretty much already exist. So that's it for the month of March, everybody. If you feel overwhelmed, don't worry, that's normal. It's a busy time of year. What I like to do is just get one thing done each day. And over the course of the month, you got 30 things done in the garden. And that is a lot. You can see behind me, my avocados have regained their leaves. And I wanted to mention before we leave that the avocado lace bug that's been decimating these trees is certainly taking its toll. But they do grow back. Just be sure to add plenty of compost, mulch, keep those trees healthy so that they can keep regrowing those leaves. And maybe we could fight off those things that way. I don't know about you, but gardening seems to be more important than ever. With all the crazy things happening in this world, food prices going up, supply chain issues, shelves going empty, doesn't it just make sense to be starting your own garden? We should have started 2 years ago. But you know the next best time to get started? I know I said it already. It's right now. First things first, check out some of these other videos, how to design your homestead, and also how to create a food forest so that you go forward with a clear plan and you don't make mistakes that the rest of us made at the beginning. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. A hui ho. See you next month.